Flor y Canto presents.
So there's two things that usually make up our life. In fact, they do make up our life. And part of it is the material, and the other part is the spiritual. We're known for both. As human, we know that we have a soul and we know that we have material. And so we live in the material life, I think, a little bit more frequently than we do in the spiritual life. It's just kind of like a norm. It's not necessarily to feel bad for doing this or doing that. In fact, that's important to live in the material. But there's another aspect that's lost. Often I think it's asleep. And we don't notice, but because it's asleep, consequently we face a lot of sadness, a lot of emptiness, a lot of purposelessness, and sometimes we feel a little bit empty. We feel like we have no purpose, like there's no reason for us to get up in the morning. Because people who have energy and who are alive and who inspire us and make us say, I want to be alive, what they have inside of them is a heart of gold. What they have inside of them is a spiritual part lit up. They have a reason to live. And so you do also have a reason to live. But sometimes maybe the reason you don't think that you have one is because of different reasons, culture, yourself and your surroundings and different things shut off that piece that's important, that's forgotten, which is your spiritual life. And the perfect person that describes spirituality is God. We get distorted a little bit by spirituality because we think of it as a building, as a church, as a place that you walk in and then you acquire it on a Sunday and then you leave and then you're whatever you want. But last time I checked, Jesus was spiritual when he fell asleep and when he woke up. When he went into a church and when he went out of a church. Why? Because spirituality is here. And it's not I who attest that, it's God who lived that attests that makes sure that that's true. Why would God put spirituality inside of a church so that you can go and leave and now it's gone? No, that just doesn't make sense. Why? Because he believes in you. And he knows that you can have this spiritual guidance, the spiritual heart inside of you at all of the times. I'm not against church, nor am I against religion. I think all of that serves its place. I'm Catholic, in fact. But God tests us day and out, or God just knows it day and out. That spirituality is something that might start at church and it might not. But it's something that's really hard to describe. But the closest words that can describe it are the ones that we love to hear, that we love to know, and we love that happen to be true. And what are those words? Love, forgiveness, healing, purpose, and smiles. That's purpose. When you touch into the spiritual part, because the spiritual part is love. God is love. Thus, he is spiritual. It's the spiritual part of life that makes us happy. God had his own journey. God, when he came, he was Jesus Christ. And Jesus he lived his life. You do not live Jesus's life. That would technically be impossible because you cannot be God and you cannot be inside of his footsteps. Though you can be inspired by the way he lived the perfect life. Why? Because he lived with people and he spent time with people who everybody hated, who everybody detested, who nobody liked to look at. God was the person with the heart that was sensitive to be with those people. And he was also firm in believing his morality. He was firm in chasing for love, and he was firm to fight for peace and also to knock down those who felt prideful, but to lift up those who were humble. So he was a strong person. He was straight and he was wrecked. He believed in love and nothing else. So when we turn on this spiritual part of life, that does mean that we introduce the part of ourselves that's kind of lost, which is called love, forgiveness, compassion. But that also requires leaving all the other ugly stuff, which is called hate, which is unforgiveness, which is all these things that leave us empty. So God has his journey. And I bet you probably want your own. And the good news is that you have it. And so you can definitely thank God that you have your own journey. But it's also up to you to form that journey. And a journey, a complete journey, a happy journey, is a material journey and a spiritual journey. So to live this life, and so that you can start marking your own steps, so that you can leave your own inspiring pieces of life for others to live back, and in a way want to be like you, it's all in your hands. It's also in God's hands. But he won't let you go when you grab him. Why? Because he's spiritual. Spiritual people are loving people. So to live this area of your life, your peace, don't be afraid to tune in to the spiritual part of your life. If that means getting to know what the spiritual part of life is, which it might be, then that's probably the perfect gateway to prayer. Why not get to know the person who was the perfect person? I think we can think of God and we can definitely say that he's perfect. He definitely would say the same thing right back. So let's challenge ourselves and take the steps that maybe not everybody takes, but the ones that inspire you and take you to that piece of you, the complete piece of you, the spiritual you. What you laughing at? I fix my hair. It's a habit I have since a little kid.